welcome back to the Within podcast. We're here actually in studio today, so we got some new digs that we're all excited. I don't know. We're excited about this.
Yeah, always.
It's been fun to kind of change the scenery. Usually we're at all of our desks, so
in person is always better, in my opinion.
I know.
Ditto.
Should probably introduce ourselves. So I'm here, Nicky Wallace with Allie Payne and Heidi Butoff with the People Co. So today we're going to, I'm going to tell my story about how the People Co, why the People Co exists, but kind of how we came up with the potential within. So as a lot of you know, and we've talked about a lot, we have a whole event that we put on. We're going to be doing our second one. Can I name the date?
Name it.
June 5th, here in West Des Moines. Again, same location. We got some really good feedback from the first event, and we're excited to switch some things up. Heidi and Allie are really charging the way with. We're gonna take everybody through a journey on this one, and how do you really get to functional health and more of a proactive approach versus a reactive approach, or if you're in a bad spot and not getting the support from a Western med doctor, like what do you do then? So, and that is all a lot of my story.
And I think, I just wanted to make sure that we really helped those of you who weren't able to join us for the first Potential Within. I think part of it was understanding like how we got to why we're doing it. What was how did someone even come up with this crazy idea? and really, we got to it because Nicky went on a personal journey. Heidi, Allie, all of us have been on our own journeys around health. And I think it will really set the stage for, why you would want to come to the Potential Within 2.0, if you will. Right. And then how we got to the journey. Because I think the journey part of it is probably what all of you, everyone has probably gone on their own journey.
Everybody has a journey.
Yeah. But absolutely. I think putting it into context will just help you understand why the Potential Within and why you might want to come.
Yeah.
Well, it's the vulnerability too, right?
Yeah, I know. Totally. So my parents were, God bless them, were in the room. And my parents were on this health journey with me. They took me to Mayo when I had to go, and I'll tell my story here in a second. But my dad, I remember, I'll never forget, afterwards, he was like, I just can't believe you got up there and told everybody you shit your pants. And I was like, multiple times, Dad. So anyway, he is one of the most patient men. But so I ended up having our second daughter, August of 2022, felt fine, and started scaling. Higher DSM at the time was the agency that we were moving into an office and doing all of the things. So I had Nora in August. October 1st, we really started looking at offices and doing all of the things to scale my business. So not stressful with a 1-month-old at all. And we just kind of took off. So that was August, December of that year. So just 4 months after having Nora, I was on a meeting at a Starbucks and I pooped my pants. No warning, no grumbly stomach, I don't feel good. I just literally I was sitting in the chair with a potential client. They did end up being a client. They still don't know that they were the person on the other side of the table.
Someone might do the math after this.
Keep everybody guessing there. But it just kind of kicked off this, that's not supposed to happen. I was 36 at the time, and all the things. So I actually started at that point going to a primary care, and hey, I've been having, because that was the first of it kept coming and it kept happening. I had constant, I was not feeling good. Just felt like I always had to pass gas almost. I was like, there's something's wrong. And went to my primary care. They told me I was crazy and that all my labs looked fine. And it was probably because I had a newborn and it would pass. And so March of 23, that was kind of my first interaction. So I went on with life. I, again, wasn't really feeling well, but just kind of doing all of the things. And May of that year, I actually started having blood in my stool along with some of this. And so that's when it started getting scary. And doctors started to listen a little bit more. And I ended up then kind of going on this crazy journey of having bowel incontinence, essentially. So, and scaling a business. I think and having 2 children under 2. And
a husband that works full time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Busy life. A little stress there.
Yeah. So kind of along all of these things of life, I was starting to be in a lot of chronic pain. I was having some back issues along the way. Again, my doctors told me it was because of the way I was holding my baby to breastfeed. And so that's why I was having back issues. And I was like, well, this seems odd, but okay, we're going to keep rolling with it. Got worse. In July of that year, they actually thought I had like a stage 4 cancer. Worst week of our lives. We kind of were almost planning for what's going to be after this. That test came back clean, and they ended up that next week just saying, oh, you're fine. You just need to watch what you eat. And I'm like, how did like last week we were literally like, getting ready to go do a will and all this thing. Sorry, I get like really emotional when I talk about this part, and I'm fine this week. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. That's not right. Right. In the meantime, I was still having the chronic back issues, and, I finally, so we're almost like 10 months in, had a doctor. I was losing control of, I wasn't able to feel my right leg. And we were on a walk one night, and I told my husband, I can't feel my leg. And he's like, what do you mean you can't feel your leg? You're walking. And I'm like, but I can't feel it. Like there's nothing happening. Like I'm just walking, right? I was pushing a stroller aside, something I was walking on. We were leaning up against, so I went to my PT the next morning because, now I'm on my 9th specialist, and they finally sent me to a sports med person that then did an MRI, and turns out I had a massive herniated disc that was completely compressing on my L4, L5 nerve root, and so I was losing functionality of everything kind of like under my belly button below. So that turned into an emergency surgery that I did after kicking off a new HIRS system in our company. I was on the call with the salesperson trying to kick it off, and he's like, I'm going to call you. And I'm like, you can't call me because I'm actually on my way to the emergency room, and had this surgery done. So had the surgery, bilateral laminectomy. We were super hopeful that kind of everything with the gut was done after that. It wasn't.
But it was a successful surgery, and it took care of the hernia.
Yep, it took care of that. There's a lot of speculation on was that related to epidural, because the L4, L5 is where they put an epidural in. Nobody would connect that. Obviously, there's a lot of lawsuits. We're not interested in suing over it. That wasn't our point, but our point was kind of like, how did we get here, right? Like I was healthy. I cheered in high school. I was very active. Competitive, like how, even to this day, I've always loved the wellness side of the world. Like it's always intrigued me. I've always worked out, like all those things. So how are we here?
Yeah.
I had the surgery. It ended up being great. I woke up, I'll never forget waking up, and I was like, oh my God, like I can move my legs, right? Like I have functionality, and they're like, you're not in pain? And I'm like, no, I actually feel great. So about a month after the surgery, all of the gut stuff ended up coming back. So the bowel incontinence, kind of with a vengeance. And I learned that pain meds actually help slow down the bowel. So like that's probably why some of that was going on, or was stopped. So obviously you can tell, or you can imagine where my head was in December of that year when I thought everything was fine. And here we are, pooping our pants again. So that's when Mayo got involved, and we were trying to figure out, because Matt explains it, that I was just kind of like a shell of a person during a lot of this time. Like I would come home from a full day of trying to scale this agency and do all the things. I had 10 employees at the time. I'd come home and I kind of like missed that period of the girls' lives in some ways because I just felt so crappy. So came back, or all of the gut stuff came back. So that's when got referred to Mayo. And in the meantime, I had been referred again to 8 or 9 specialists, and they all kind of said the same thing, right? Like, let's do this test. So like I had all these, some pretty invasive procedures to see, what's going on with your gut. Is there something going on with your colon? Is there something, what is the situation? And I just was so defeated because I was scared. Mm-hmm. I was 36 at the time, and here I am having literally pooping my pants with no control. And nobody could really tell me why, except for, you're fat and you need to eat differently. Like that was literally kind of like the messaging behind all of it. And so after going to Mayo, they finally diagnosed me with bile acid diarrhea, which is just like a rare. They told me at Mayo, which was one thing that it's kind of always stuck with me, is like, it's not common, but you're not like, it's not unfixable either. So like, I can't remember exactly how they said it, but, they're like, you're here because we can probably help you.
Yeah.
And it's not something normal that people are going through. Right. So they sent me back to Des Moines, and they put me on this medication that made everything like almost worse. So then I was like, like backed up that I was almost in more pain. And I'm like, forget this. I have to figure out what's going on. So along this whole journey, I was going to TikTok and all the social media because you don't talk about pooping your pants, especially at my age. So I was becoming a very lonely journey. Like I was during the time of scaling my agency, I also was getting all this feedback. You should speak on stages about who you are and what you're doing and how you're doing things. And so I remember one night I had to speak at a pretty big event the next day, and I don't love to speak anyway. Allie knows this about me. And I said to my husband, I was crying, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, what if I get up on stage and I poop my pants? And he said, why do you care? And I said, oh my God, you're such a guy. Like, why would I not care?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't be the staffing owner that poops their pants on stage. Yeah. Like, that's just not.
I find that odd that he thinks that that's okay.
I know. I think at that point he was just like, God, somebody help this lady.
Yeah.
But I
can't do it anymore.
Yeah. But I share that because I was getting so much mental issues. I was getting like the anxiety, and I've never dealt with any of that. I've dealt with mental health and scary thoughts and all of that kind of throughout my parts of my life, but I've never dealt with the major anxiety and like not being able to get in front of people. And so here I am, I'm having this physical journey, and then it's turning into this mental game of like, how do I actually get myself out of bed and do all these things every day with this like deep fear that something is going to happen? So, and I supported manufacturing, so it was a lot of men. So I'm also like, I can't be the woman in the room that then, passes gas or whatever. So anyway, after Mayo, I threw the pills away that they gave me, and they wanted me to go on some 2-week journey up at Mayo to do this like pelvic floor, because they're like, nobody in Des Moines is doing this. So there's like no one, like we actually at that point couldn't find anyone to get referred to. I don't know if Courtney was even like up and running at that point or whatnot. So I threw away all the pills and I said, screw it, like I'm going to figure out what's going on. So that's about the time I got introduced into epigenetics, and epigenetics really is like your environment and how your environment is impacting your body. It's kind of the simplest way to say it. So I actually went and did a whole certification and got certified to be able to do this testing. So it's just a hair scan, and I got this 37-page report back and kind of started to dive in and all the things that are challenging your body. So where I started was the whole food. So at that point, we literally like stripped in like one weekend. I cleaned out everything in our house and started changing the way that we prepared food. And I'd always done meal prepping, but instead of using the processed cheese, we, started shredding our own and like going through all this journey. So, and I started just really peeling back the layers of like, how am I showing up for myself and becoming like super, super aware of what was going into my body, and started to slowly heal myself. So, that brings us to, really, I also didn't share my journey with anybody. So we're 2 years in at this point, and my very immediate family are really the only people that knew what was going on and how much pain I was in. And so as I was going through all of this, I was like, I just can't believe I don't have any support. Like I don't have anywhere to go. I was going to TikTok. I was going to Googling my symptoms, trying to figure out like what was going on, but I didn't really have anybody to talk to. Nobody talks about pooping their pants, or nobody talks about like some of this chronic illness. And that was always like, didn't sit right with me. So, kind of at that point, I was going to start, I had sold my staffing agency operations, and I was going into just doing back to HR consulting. And I just had this deep rooted belief that there has to be a way that this all goes together. And I stepped back, and I was really like, we go talk to all these executives in these organizations or business owners, and they're all stressed. And, one was like pounding her chest one day, and she thought her heart palpitations were normal. And I was like, this just isn't normal. Like, nobody is taking care of their bodies because we're all running around in this world that is crazy and stressed, but nobody's talking about it. Like, you might talk about it with your girlfriends, or you might talk about it, to your husband or your parents, but like, nobody's actually addressing the fact that we are all humans. And when we walk in the door, whether it's stay-at-home mom or whether you're an executive or individual contributor, like, you still have the things going on in your life. And they don't stop. So how do I use my platform to talk about this differently? So my sister at the time lived in Scottsdale or Mesa, and they had we have our home and garden show. Like, they had an expo, like a wellness expo. And I was like, how do we do this in Des Moines? Like, how do we do this in Des Moines and be able to start? I had gotten introduced to functional med. I kind of left that part of the story out, which is probably an important part. But, after going to Mayo and all the things, I'd gotten introduced to functional med, and I went, and I'll never forget the first panel of blood that they did. Instead of like 4 markers you get at the, at the doctor, we got like 92 or 108 markers, and they were able to really pinpoint, your vitamin D or inflammatory. So all of my gut inflammation markers were just like through the roof. There's a couple that, I was supposed to be at 8, and it was like at 64 or something like that. So, those kind of being able to see those markers, and then alongside the epigenetics, I was able to really say, like, what should I focus on first versus like, oh, you just need to watch what you eat. Like, thanks. Like, I've always struggled with my weight. I've always known that. So anyway, I'm very grateful for my network and the people that I ended up getting introduced to and could kind of get the support I needed. But, had this idea, and I was just like, I think the way that we start doing this is talking about it. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Like, now I don't really flinch, but, for 2.5 years, I didn't talk about this at all in front of anybody. But the day that I did, I was sitting on a panel, and I was like 150 women specifically in the room. It was a women's group. And they asked, what's one thing that you've done this past year that you're passionate about that has nothing to do with your business? And I said, I've had this whole medical journey, and I went and got certified and went through this training to try to heal myself. And I literally had a line of people after that, women in tears, and, oh my God, can we go to coffee? I want to talk about you. So it kind of like all of these things started culminating, and I'm like, I think people are craving a safe space to be able to talk about these things, but everybody just doesn't have a way to do it. So fast forward, kind of all of the things I kept just praying or whatever, whoever you believe in, about like, this has to come together somehow. Like, I believe all of my platform and people in my kind of orbit, they all have seen me go through this and kind of seen the struggles, and a lot of them had opened up that there was things going on. So I was like, I think the way we do it is start with an event. So start talking about it. So I know a lot of people started seeing my LinkedIn's change. I'm pretty direct the way it is, so I just started being authentic on some of the platforms I'm on, and then having this event. And the event really was, for me, about 3 things: how do you educate, how do you create, share resources. So like, we had 17 people, 12 vendors, and 5 or 6 sponsors that were all kind of in the well-being space. Like, how do you create community around, give resources and create community around this, like well-being, like just a safe space for people to be able to come together and talk about their journey or whatever.
I think a lot of people just didn't know about all the resources, or don't know about all the resources right here in Des Moines. Like, it's just, the resources are incredible, and we're either too scared to recognize or too fearful for what we might learn, or we just don't know what we don't know. That's kind of how my journey started, where I was like, I just didn't know. And so I talked to my friend Heidi, and she was like, you should go meet with someone to do functional medicine. And I was like, oh.
And what you just said, I think, was like, I'm just so grateful that I have this, determination that I did to not take some of those doctors like, oh, this is just the way it's going to be. And I was like, there's literally no way. Like, I kind of always like shrugged off like advocating for yourself in the health space, like, whatever. Like, but like having to actually advocate for myself for months and months and months and months and months, and have doctors like straight up tell me I'm crazy. I mean, and that I needed to just calm down and eat differently. But I think so many people just assume, oh, I'm just older. Like it's normal to pee my pants, or it's normal to have the hot flashes. And like, some of that is normal, but like, you shouldn't go every day suffering with whatever malady, it is that you're dealing with, or symptom. Or everybody, if they're not going through something, there's people taking care of people that are going through something. And how do you just show up a little bit differently for that person, or, hold a little space for them? So that's how the Potential Within really was born. Everybody thought I was crazy. I still, I'm so excited. We've gotten so much great feedback from the first event. We're going to change, like we said, a little bit of the format of the next event to really take people through that journey of, where to turn or who to go to.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot
of
even
ask questions.
Yeah. So. I think a lot of it is around like, we don't know what we don't know. Right. And so how do we introduce people to modalities or things that they could do to help with whatever ailment they have? And that's really the idea. And then to position you with great resources. Right. So the other thing is like, okay, I want to do lymphatic massage. Now what? Like, oh, we've got a great resource that can help you with that. Or,
or even why would I do lymphatic massage?
I
didn't even realize that existed. Or pelvic floor therapy. I mean, 25 years ago when I was having babies, no one was talking about pelvic floor therapy. So it is bringing those resources. I do thank you, Nikki, for sharing your story, because that's really where it starts. I mean, and as Allie alluded to, the three of us all have our own stories, and most people have a story to tell. But that's really what started kind of my whole thought process on, I wish I would have known. And just every time I would learn something, I would kind of just make a note of it. I wish I would have known. And why we do the special edition of Wish I Would Have Known with our podcast is because we want people to know. We want to try to share the things that we had to learn at some point, and just make sure that people understand that those things are available now, proactively, not until you are starting to poop your pants. But again, whatever that situation or scenario is, there's ways to make sure that you are feeling better, living your best life.
And just being authentic and being real. That we're trying to create a space for you to talk about pooping your pants in public.
Like even if it isn't that, like, God, I hope people are not just dealing with that every day, but it's like whatever you are dealing with if it's not normal, it's not fun, right? And it's not okay. So how do you just create that space, that conversation, the dialogue? And if you come to the event, you don't need to talk about, you can, but like you don't have to. But I think just creating that space. So
and the last thing that I would say, I mean, in addition to that but it's also accountability. What the difference is between kind of traditional or Western medicine and the more holistic is you do have a self-accountable element to it. You had to seek out, because you know your body best.
You do,
Your doctors kept on saying, here, try this medication, or here's what's going on, and it really wasn't the solution. And so there is a level of self-accountability, and I think by coming to the event too, you that's your first step of accountability. Just come and learn, get involved, learn what's around you, and how how we can help each other.
So that's how it started. That's how it I've always known that there's got to be a different way to talk about this, and there's got to be, so our hope even with the People Co is that we can continue to create these spaces and then bring that into an organization, because I think we're not naive to think too that business still has to go on. We're not nonprofits, so how do you just make tweaks or have those listening sessions for the people to understand how to better support them and what's going on. And it's not always possible, but most of the time, more often than not, there are little tweaks you can do, so being able to kind of bridge that gap for organizations, and just feel safe also having those conversations. So we hope you enjoyed this, learning all about my situation. It's the best way to say it, right? So grateful for, as hard as it was to go through, I think I'm hopeful that, other people can learn and we can continue to move forward in this crazy, crazy world we live in. We just have so much coming at us all the time. So hoping we can all slow down and listen to our bodies and do the things that we need to do to take care of it. So hope you enjoyed. Thank you. We welcome you to talk more about your bowels. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll plan on seeing you next week.